So what would I do? What I would do, I was go find all the Duval Country Club in Miami and all those places and buy tax liens in the country club. So I don't get paid. I get a country club property. Sounds good to me.
Welcome to Best Counties for Tax Lien Auctions in Florida. And welcome to about the best guy to tell you about that. This is Ted Thomas. Ted, I think over 30 years of experience in real estate and particularly in tax deeds and tax liens. So maybe you can start off, Ted. First question, can you just explain for folks and for me even, what is a tax lien auction?
Okay, a tax lien auction in Florida and about half of the states in the United States is always the same thing. So what happens, everybody is required to pay property tax. So the legislature of each state makes the rules and governs the state. And the legislature passes down the rule to the local county commissioners or board of supervisors and says all property owners must pay tax. When they don't pay tax, the government now has the position that they can take the property back. In other words, you forfeit your property if you don't pay for it. So in half of the states, they're very benevolent, especially Florida, the very benevolent state. And what Florida says, no, they haven't paid the tax. So what we're going to do is we're going to sell a tax lien certificate on that defaulted property. So anybody who defaulted property did not pay their tax, the local government, the treasurer in that county, is going to sell a tax lien certificate. It's nothing more than a piece of paper about that big. All right. They're going to sell that tax lien certificate. And why would someone want to buy that? Well, someone would want to buy it. And when they do buy it, they're going to pay the tax on that defaulted property. When they pay that tax, the county then has a covenant, a promise that says, we're going to pay you interest on your money. And if you don't get paid, you get the property. All right. So let me repeat that so it's clear to everybody. The county is going to sell a certificate. And when you buy the certificate, you pay someone else's tax. When you pay someone else's tax, the county is going to promise, that's a covenant, they're going to promise two things. One, you'll earn interest on that certificate. And two, if you don't get paid, you'll get the property. So that's what a tax lien certificate is. They're available in round numbers, 1,500 different counties in the United States. They've been around for hundreds of years. There's many investors that think of them as an alternative investment. I'm fond of saying to people, I believe it's the safest, most lucrative investment in the United States today. Why? Because if you want to buy one, you can't buy it from Ted Thomas or anybody else. You're going to invest with your local county. And when you invest with the local county, your money is going to be safe and secure. It's protected by the property tax code. And you're going to earn an interest rate. Now, the interest rates are really, well, some people say they're outstanding. I say they're outrageous because the interest rates could be in Arizona as high as 16%. Florida could go as high as 18%. Places like Iowa, 24%. Illinois tops them all at 36%. All right, now I don't make the rules. There's all special rules for tax certificates. Can't give you them all now, but it's a very simple thing. You can buy a certificate from the local government. When you do that, they give you two covenants. The two covenants are you get paid an interest rate. If you don't get paid and paid on time, you'll ultimately end up with that property without a mortgage. The mortgage is taken off the property. So it's a safe, secure investment. Long answer, but now you know what it is.
Well, let me ask you, Ted, is it the same? So we have all these other states that are doing tax lien auctions and certificates. Is how it works in Florida? Is it the same? Does it work the same way then? Is there anything different in Florida?
The system works the same in all 1,500 counties. What's different is the fact that the interest rates are different and the county might have some special rules. The counties are individual jurisdictions, and the board of supervisors and the county commissioners can make whatever rules they want within the county as long as they stay within the rules of the legislatures. So different states were created as states at different times. Most people don't recognize that, but first the United States started out with colonies, and then they slowly expanded until the last state was contiguous state was Oklahoma, and then finally Alaska became and then Hawaii and so on. So the point is each of the states have their own rules, but it's always the same system.
You mentioned how many different counties are there in Florida?
In Florida's got 67 counties.
60 different. So what, in your opinion, then, what are the best counties in Florida to concentrate on? I mean, would Miami be a good choice?
Well, I don't know if there's any best. They all have the same rules, so there's no best. But if you want to know the amount of certificates, it's basically predicated on how many people live. So if you lived in a county that only had 4,000 people, there's only going to be a few tax certificates. If you live in a county like Miami-Dade, well, Miami-Dade is going to have 60,000. In Florida, the population, although Florida's a big state, 40% of the people in Florida, 40% now, there's 22 million, 40% live between Okeechobee Boulevard in West Palm Beach and Collins Boulevard in Miami. That's about 100 miles on the tip of Florida. There's 40% of the state there. So you're talking about 9 million people live in that 100 miles. Now, the rest of Florida, the middle of Florida is all rural state. It's the second biggest beef producing state in the United States. It's a rural state. All right, but they got a lot of population. So Broward County is a good county because a lot of people. West Palm Beach, a lot of people. But when there's a lot of people, that means a lot of competition. You want to go over to Tampa? You could go. That's Hillsborough County or Pinellas County. That's Tampa and Clearwater. On the East Coast, going back to that, you could go to Duval County. That's Jacksonville. All of those counties have large populations, and that means there's going to be a lot of tax lien certificates. But in the state, there will be 1 million certificates available each year. 1 million.
Wow. So and that's some good advice there to kind of make sense of, go with a lot of people. That's going to be more opportunity. But you mentioned, though, more opportunity. There might be more competition in that auction, right?
So I'd reverse what you just said. Go to the counties that don't have a lot of competition.
All right. So, what are some of the? Can you name some of the counties that just have just a little bit of competition, where it might be the best place for a beginner to start in Florida with tax lien investing?
I tell people, don't look for that. Just do it in your own county. If you lived in Florida, just go to that county. If you want to find small counties, you can go online and look at there's 67 counties in the state, and you can find counties that have small populations, less than 50,000. But you're only going to find a few tax lien certificates. But wherever you live is where you should start because it's so easy in your own county.
Is it now? You mentioned the process might be different county to county, like they might have different laws.
Absolutely,
can you give us
every county and every auction can be different because they can change the rule. The county might have a rule this year, and they might change it next year. You have to look at the rules at every auction. Every auction.
How do you get all that information? I mean, if there's a lot of different auctions in Florida, where do you get that information and to be able to compare?
Good question. First of all, they always publicize it in the local newspaper. And secondly, just go online to the county website, and there'll be so much information you'll go to sleep every night reading that in the county website. There's tons of information, all the rules for the auction. They'll even tell you what they sold for last year, tell you the population, tell you everything about the county on the county website.
Is there anything that you got to be careful about doing when you're investing in tax liens in Florida? I mean, what are the rights and wrongs about how to go about doing it correctly?
Well, it's not going to matter if it's just Florida, so we shouldn't narrowcast just to Florida. If you're buying anything, you should be paying attention. You've got to do due diligence. People buy tax lien certificates. I'll just give you an example. This is a list of tax lien certificates from a Miami newspaper. Okay, now when I open this up, you're going to be in shock. Okay, so the newspaper, as you can see, it's got a lot of pages to it, right?
Yep.
Okay, there's no pictures in the newspaper. This is just a tax list. The whole thing is a tax list. 60,000 of them. 60,000. So some people do this. They get out the list and they go, I'm going to buy that one. They're just going to go with their finger. They got that one. All right, let me hold it up to the camera. I'm going to buy that one. Well, what did you buy? You don't want to do that. That's what people do, though. They do that all the time. If you're going to buy something, don't you think you ought to look at it? Don't you think you ought to go online and look at it from the satellite? Don't you think you ought to look at Google Maps? Do you think you might want to drive by there? I mean, if you're buying something, what if you got a tax lien certificate that's in the middle of an area that's completely blighted and is a ghetto and it's worthless. Well, I can tell you right now, nobody's going to pay off that tax certificate, so you're going to lose your money. So you need to look at the property. Now, when you go down to buy a new shirt, well, you look at the shirt. Well, I like that color. It fits good. You do. I mean, you do something about due diligence when you spend your money. People go to tax auctions and they just start buying stuff. I know, because I watch them do it. I know that there's hedge funds that will come to, say, West Palm Beach and buy a page of tax lien certificate. They'll buy the whole page. Everything's on the page. Well, some of those properties on the page are underwater. I mean, literally under Okeechobee Lake. They're under the lake. Well, what are you going to do with a lot that's down under the water? What are you going to do? If you're a submarine, you can be down there. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So people do crazy things. I don't know. So are there any risks? There's risk in everything if you don't pay attention. So one, you'd want to look at the property. Number two, you'd want to know, what if you didn't get paid? Now, 95, 97% of the tax certificates pay off. What if you didn't get paid? What are you going to do now? You're going to get the property. What are you going to do with it? Well, if the property's underwater, it's not going to do any good, right? So that was a really big mistake. So some people buy hundreds of those. Educated buyer, I'm in the business of education. Educated buyer would start out, first of all, finding out where it is. They would look at it. And when they were there, they would look around. What's here? Oh, wow, this is a nice neighborhood. All right, so if they ended up with the property, they could probably sell it. All right, what if it's in a bad area? Well, what if it's a property that's way up on the top of a mountain in Colorado? Colorado says tax lien certificate, and there's no road up there. Now what are you going to do? I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen. So this isn't some business you can just walk in and say, clap your hands, let's go. This is a business that requires you pay attention to what you're doing.
So, you mentioned maybe the best county for somebody in Florida to start with tax liens might be their own, just because, they can drive and they can look at the property.
That's a good point. Go drive and take a look at it. Take a look. Now, after a while, you would notice, for example, I showed you a Miami paper with thousands of them. Well, you would know the county records will show you exactly which was lien number one, which is number two, and so on. You could drive to certain areas and find out all the numbers in that area. So what would I do? What I would do, I was go find all the Duval Country Club in Miami and all those places. I'd go find all the country clubs and buy tax liens in the country club. So I don't get paid. I get a country club property. Sounds good to me.
That sounds like a great idea, actually. Well,
I'm not going to be arbitrary about. You're not arbitrary about spending your money. Well, maybe at a gas station because you got to have gas, and they have standards. They're all about the same. But there's no all about the same about tax lien certificates, except you're going to owe the money. And if you bought a junker, you bought a junker. That would not be a good idea.
So, Ted, you held up a newspaper that had tons of properties, and that's great. It's a lot of opportunity, but it's almost overwhelming. So, if somebody's just starting out in tax lien investing in Florida, where should they start? How should they get started doing this?
The easiest thing and the cheapest thing is go to the county. The county is going to tell you when their auction is and how many different liens they have. They're also going to tell you the rules for the auction. Then, when the newspaper comes out, you'll now know all the numbers. Once you know the number of the property, every property has a number, just like you have a Social Security number, a property has a number. So then you can go online and research that number. That number will only be used once in the state, and then you can go to that number and see if they got any information on the property. And once you have that information, you can go drive there. You could use Google Maps. You could use a GIS mapping system and look down on the property. You could do property research. You could go to my auction calendar, which would show you how many properties are going to come up at that auction. Would show you. You could go into the computer and see exactly. You could tap into the county computer, and once you have the number, you can know everything: 3-bedroom, 2-bath, so many square feet, what the property is worth, what the house next door is worth. You can find all kinds of information. You should research everything you buy.
Okay, Ted, if I'm interested, doing some tax lien investing in Florida, what are the requirements for myself? I mean, do I need to live in Florida? Do I need to be a U.S. resident? I mean, what are the requirements?
Actually, when you're giving money to the government, they really don't care where you live. So you could be in the United Kingdom, you could be in any of the provinces of Canada. I have clients in Singapore, I have clients in Bangkok, I have Mexico City, Central America, wherever you want to be. You can give money to the government. Believe me, they're going to take it. You don't need a passport. They don't care whether you're white, green, black, yellow, whatever you are. They don't care. Fat, skinny. If you're going to send money to the government, they're going to take it. So that's the only requirement is you have U.S. dollars. Now, I do want to caution, we have a large Spanish audience, not only within the United States, but outside. And so you do need to understand English because all the county records and everything in the United States is in English. Now, they're doing a lot of Spanish, but don't plan on getting into investments in Spanish. You're going to have United States dollars and understand English. So just a caution. We have thousands of Spanish clients, and it's not a problem, but just I want to give you a little warning.
Hey, so Ted, regarding the auctions, then, do I have to go to an auction? Does this happen online? What are the opportunities there?
Well, when I started years ago, back in the days, I had black hair and I was skinny. Well, we had to drive there to get the list, and then we had to beg them to give us that. Now everything is online, so the internet changed the ball game for everyone, and by that I mean it speeded the whole process up, and it made it more lucrative. So this is a more lucrative business today than when I started 30 plus years ago. So the answer to Randy's question is this. All of the states are online now. Almost all of the counties are online. So figure that out first. You don't have to figure a lot out. We give classes every day on how to do it online. So you can buy tax lien certificates and tax defaulted property online, and you can sell them the exact same way.
So, hey, Ted, I'm assuming then, can you pay with credit card then? Is that how you pay for this?
You're not going to have credit cards in all places, but there's a couple of places we can do credit cards. So New York, I've bought properties in New York with credit cards all the way up to a couple of $100,000 and more. And Michigan also takes credit cards. Both of those states do that. But most of the other states are going to have you make a bank draft. You're not going to use checks. You're going to have to put money in the bank, and then you'll work down on your account from there. So that's a whole system I don't have time to explain now, but the county's going to have you submit money to them. They'll make sure they get good money before they even accept a bid.
Okay. And, one other question. So, when do these auctions happen? How often do they happen? Are they happening at the same time in all the counties, or does each county have its own schedule?
That's a good question. Okay. In the United States, the counties decide what they want to do. In a place like Florida, to give you an example, in Florida, they'll say in the month of May and maybe some of a week or so in June, May, June, all of the counties should do their auctions. In Arizona, for example, they'll say, all right, we'd like to have the auction. We'll do most of those. Now, Arizona has 12 or 14 counties, not very many. And they'll say, we're going to do all of those auctions in probably February. Now, can they change that next year? Yes. So just check with the local county. They'll tell you when they're going to do it.
So the redemption period in Florida is what is that? Is it any different?
Okay, now every state is going to have their own rules. So just assume if you go to one county in a state and then go to another county, it'll be different. If you go from one state to another state, it's going to be different. So understand there's going to be differences. However, the overall tax lien and deed business is the same in all. There's just going to be little nuances. But they're enough so that you'd always read the rules. So don't go to an auction without reading the rules and understanding them. If you don't understand them, ask the people there and they'll tell you. All right, so now, what is a redemption period? So if you raised your hand and you bought a tax certificate in Florida, they're going to issue you a tax lien certificate. All right, now for 2 years, that property owner can come in and redeem that certificate. In other words, give you back your money plus the interest rate. All right, so now you give them the tax certificate, and the treasurer then puts the money that you earned in your account. So a redemption period in Florida is up to 2 years.
And if after 2 years that guy doesn't pay his taxes, I get the property, right?
That's right. You'll go through a foreclosure process. And in Florida, it's a little different than other states. In Florida, they're going to have another auction. So they're going to have a subsequent or a second auction, and you can just sit there and wait. If nobody bids at that auction, you get the property. If they do bid, that's not a problem for you because you're going to get all your money, plus you're going to get all your money back. And so you did fine. So either way, you do great in Florida.
Well, just in case I do end up with a property, should I, you always talk about doing due diligence. When we're talking about tax deeds, you're always about, man, look at that property before you buy it. Should you do that as well with, a tax lien property that you're not expecting to get the property, but you might get it?
Well, as I said earlier, people get the list out. They get this big list out and they start looking. This is a newspaper. They get the list out and they pick a property. They're going to buy it. And they just pay for it, right? They pick a tax lien and they pay for it. Well, that's not the way to buy tax lien. You should know what you're buying. So when you go to that number in the newspaper to buy the tax certificate, you need to do your due diligence. Now, what does due diligence mean? That means you should check the county records. You can access that online. If you don't know how to do it, come to our classes. We'll show you how to do it. All right. Then you should go there and have boots on the ground. How do you know they didn't have a hurricane and it's gone? You don't know. The county doesn't know either. So you better figure that out. What if there was a fire? What if it was next to a pig farm? I mean, there could be any kind of thing wrong with that property. You want to find that out before you buy it.
Ted,
or before you buy the tax lien.
One other question. So I do a tax lien. The guy never pays for it. It goes to auction. Nobody bids on it. So I'm stuck with a property. Do I have to take the property?
No, you could just say, I'm not going to spend any more money. And then it would go to tax sale again a year later. And if nobody buys it, then it'll go on another list called a surplus lands or leftover list or scavenger list. It'll go on another list. And then they'll try to sell it again. The treasurer is going to continuously try to sell that property because the treasurer's job is to bring money in to pay for the police department, the fire department, whatever. So they're going to try many, many times, but we're not talking about all those different ones right now. But if it doesn't sell, if it sells at the auction, great. If it doesn't, it'll go on another list.
Ted, you mentioned your auction calendar, and that could be a really great place for people just kind of get started right now, because I know you have a special offer for them.
Well, there's two things that I found out. So I've been doing this about 35 years. And when I started out, the big challenge for everybody was to understand that there were thousands of counties in the United States doing this. So there's 1,500 counties that just sell tax liens. So any of those 1,500 counties, you can buy tax liens online. So they were overwhelmed. They didn't even know where the counties were. So I created an interactive map and auction calendar. So electronically with a mouse, you can just move your mouse around and you can go state to state and see how many auctions they're going to have, how many properties will be available, and you can research all. So now the whole United States is available to you. So once they get to that map, and we'll have a demo for them right below me, but you can see that. Once you see that, you realize what a huge business this is. It's not just, well, let me say it's a business of abundance, but most people just think of their own sphere of where they live. This is happening all across the United States.
So, Ted, you made it available for the folks watching this right now to take a look at that map for free, haven't you?
Yes.
What do they have to do that?
All they have to do is go below me, and then there'll be directions. You'll see some white circles on the map, and just before you know it, you'll be able to go right to a different county. It's a complete demo, so you understand it.
I think it's a great idea, folks. If you're watching, take Ted up on that. Check it out. You'll see all the properties that are available in Florida and across the United States if you want to take a look at it. But nice way to get started and see what the opportunities are up there. So, hey, Ted, thanks once again for your knowledge here and letting folks know what it's looking like down there, tax liens in Florida. And thank you for watching, everybody.